I'm Andrea, a passionate DEI advocate and consultant on a mission. Join me in each episode as we celebrate diversity, ignite conversations, and craft workplaces and educational institutions where everyone thrives. This podcast is my commitment to making a meaningful impact on the world of diversity, equity, and inclusion. So are you ready? Let's get Diversifused. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Get Diversifused podcast. I'm your host, Andrea Horton-Mericli, founder of Diversifuse Consulting and a passionate DEI advocate and ally. In today's episode, we will discuss embracing deaf inclusivity, how to foster a truly accessible workplace with our guest speaker, Kellina Powell. Kalina is a deaf coach and advocate, a podcast speaker, a best-selling author, and a passionate entrepreneur on a mission to help young adults with disabilities achieve their goals while also educating others about the deaf community. What makes her story even more incredible is that Kalina is actually a hard of hearing person who lost 100% of her hearing at the young age of 4. So welcome, Kalina, to the Get Diversifused podcast. Thank you so much for being our guest today.
Thank you so much for having me, and I am excited to be here.
I'm excited to have you on, so thank you so much. So why don't you tell the listeners a little bit about your story and how you came to be a deaf coach and advocate and a podcast speaker and entrepreneur. I mean, you're so young and you've already accomplished so much. I want to hear your story.
Thank you, Andrea, for the lovely introduction. It all started actually when I used to work at a big park in Canada. For those who don't know, I'm actually located in Canada, Toronto, so I am not American. Some people think I'm American, but I'm not. And so it all started when I actually used to work at a big park in Canada. A little boy approached me, and he's also deaf. He was hearing aid, and my hair was in a ponytail, and he's like, "Oh, Kalina, oh my God!" Like, it was just so sweet ever. And his mom came to me full of joy, excitement, and she said, "Didn't you just put your hair in a ponytail? You just give my son some hope in himself, because I've been teaching my son that he can be himself."
That's awesome.
And she also said, "Since you did that, you're going to make a change in the world. You just don't know, but I see it coming." And I'm like, okay, thank you. And then the second story happened was when I actually was in my last year of university. I was in a math class. Luckily, I did not even know this. My professor was actually a hard of hearing person too. Oh. He actually paused the lecture to say, "Hold on, I need to read my hearing aid battery." I was mind blown because I didn't even know he could do that. And the confidence he had in himself was so what I admire. And because I couldn't do that. Like, a professor who paused the lecture to change the hearing aid battery, he changed it from the class. He was talking to, like, it was just, like, I'm like, wow, I need this. And so I had a great conversation with him after class, and I asked him how he built his confidence. How do you get to where he is today? And he said, "Well, just like you just came up to me, and I didn't know you were deaf. You didn't know I was deaf either." And so that was what got into my mind was, oh my God, it clicked from the little boy. And now this, I feel like this is something telling me that I need to do much more for the deaf community because it's very limited. Not everybody understands the deaf community. Mm-hmm. And it's very unfortunate that, schools don't teach us this, especially how to be inclusive for the disability community, not just the deaf community, but as a whole as well. And that's when I was talking to him about, well, I don't want to go to school. I don't want to do this. So it was very hard to really figure out what I want to do. So unfortunately, I had to, do a lot of research. And then I found coaching with the perfect match. And then I kick off straight from there. And then I am here now. So that's really got me lead here.
That's awesome. And that's just such a wonderful story that you were able to see. Well, people were able to relate to you, and you were able to see the impact that you just showing up or even asking questions to your professor had. And to be inspired from your professor, just like that little boy was inspired by you. And it's just an incredible story. I love it. And so what made you, this is not a question I gave you but ahead of time, but what made you decide to start authoring books like this lovely book Every day I am just deaf. And life in a hearing world with deaf boss queen, which I told you before the podcast. I love that. So what made you
Thank
decide
you.
to start writing? You're welcome.
And honestly, the reason why I start writing my book was because 90% of people I ask, especially the hearing community, because I'm always associated with them all the time, and I asked them, "Have you read a book by a deaf author?" 90% of them said no. And I was like, oh. And then I also had a mentor. She also suggested me write a book. And I said, no, I can't write a book. My people don't know this. I had a speech delay when I was growing up. And it was very hard for me to write sentences, especially doing essay alone in high school and middle school. It was very hard for me to come across. And that's why I was so afraid to write my book. And that's when I did my research, talked to a lot of hearing community, and they all was like, oh my God, yes. And so when I started writing my book, I had a great editor, I had a great graphic designer, and a lot of people was really excited for me. So it was a very good way of doing my book. But yeah, that's exactly why I wrote my book. It's really to inspire other people and educate the hearing community about the deaf world.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely does. And it's, I love the writing style that you decided to choose, and almost like poetry style. And it's just it makes it's brief but effective, and it's an easy read. I would say easy read, but it's very easy to read, because when people see a lot of words on a lot of words on a page, it can be a little intimidating. But you made it very accessible, not just for the deaf community, but for everyone. And it's so I highly encourage you listeners, if you have not heard of Kalina's book, to check it out. It's great. It's great. You're welcome. So what are I'm going to just ask you the first question. What are some common misconceptions about the deaf community that you've encountered, and how can we work to dispel them in the workplace and in the community at large?
Okay, so in the workplace, it can be very tricky because it's not always consistent. Especially when you do a short conversation, there's no consistent in there, right? So for me to give someone advice, for example, I used to work at a warehouse, and what my supervisor really did was very impressed. So every time we had a meeting, he would give us a booklet before the meeting happened, so that I'm aware of what's going on. So that's a great way. And second thing is, don't be afraid to advocate for yourself when you need something. It took me years to advocate for myself in the workplace because I didn't want to be put on the rug, or they don't know how to accommodate, or it's going to take a long time to accommodate us. And that's why a lot of times people don't work, especially people with disability, because it's so hard to get what we need in the workplace. And sometimes in the workplace, they don't want to help sometimes. And for example, I used to work at a grocery store, and there was during COVID time, there was a Mac. And I remember my supervisor called me and she was talking to me with the mask on. I'm trying to explain to her so many times, I am hard of hearing. I need you to put your mask down to read your lips. So all of this, you're always consistently reminding them, and it's very frustrating. A lot of times they don't understand that it's just it doesn't work. So it's very unfortunate.
Thank you so much for giving this suggestions, and for giving us an example of your experience. And I'm going to start with the last thing that you said with the masks. I remember during COVID, at least for in education, and maybe some hospitals did too, there was somebody who developed a mask. It might have been a speech pathologist who developed a mask that was clear.
Yeah.
And which was oh my gosh, so simple. Such a simple thing. And it was anti-fog, because once you start speaking, and if it's plastic, yeah, it's clear, but once you start speaking, it's going to fog up and you're back to square one. So yeah. It was just so innovative and so simple, that addressed issues like individuals who needed to read lips to totally comprehend what the person was saying. And yeah, so but when it comes to the workplace, you're right. Sometimes it does take longer because unfortunately with organizations, and it's a pain,
Yeah.
they have all this red tape, all these processes that they have to go through to get one thing approved. Okay, it goes to this person, it goes to this person, it goes to this person, and it just adds time on before the final person can approve it, and then purchase it, or whatever, if it needs to be purchased, or just make sure it's given to the employee, whatever it may be. And it makes sense what you said. That's why a lot of individuals with disabilities that are more visible to others choose not to work because it's so difficult. I never even thought about that, about why so many individuals may choose not to work who have disabilities. And that is a very eye-opening thing you just brought to my attention. So, and so thank you. So with that, how can organizations better support deaf employees in leadership roles? So someone who may be either hard of hearing or 100% deaf, and they're moving up in the organization, how can organizations better support them when they get into leadership roles, ensuring that they have the tools and opportunities to succeed? What do you suggest?
I would suggest it to have a consistent meeting with the individual to find out how we can be better for them in the workplace, because that actually improves the performance of the individual and for the company, right? And some people think it's one way, especially organization. And I said, no, it's both ways. How you expect your employees to be happy when you cannot be consistent? So it's one consistent follow up. Follow up is very important. And we should provide workshop. It's talking about disability. It doesn't have to be a weekly workshop. It could be once a month workshop. It could be every other month workshop where everybody can get together, follow up, see how we can make this place more accessible, or even create or even let the person who therefore had a disability create a program, create a workshop, because that will make the workplace even more accessible, because you actually have an individual who disabled themselves. A lot of time organization would bring someone, but they can't speak on that behalf because they're not disabled themselves, or they have somewhat disabled, right? So not fully disabled. And also too, the person don't work at that workplace, right? Yeah. So how would you do that? How would you help your organization and someone who's disabled in the community organization? How would that work? So that would be my advice and my tips.
I love that. And that's actually, when it comes to anything in the workplace, communication is so important. You should never assume or make assumptions about somebody else, about what would work for somebody, without getting their input. Because even individuals who identify with having any type of disability or a hard of or deafness level, everybody's different. Everybody's different. It's not a one solution fits everybody. It's not one size fits all. In any situation. So having those conversations, those important conversations, which will improve inclusivity, and make the employee feel valued and heard, and make things more accessible to them, it makes a huge difference. And the chances of that employee, after having the conversation and getting what they need to be successful, to help them be more successful in their role, the chances of them being happy and engaged and staying at the organization, retention rates increases, right? Their contributions to the team will increase and improve as well, because they have what they need to be successful. But yeah, organizations need to take all this into account. Yeah, it may cost money in the short run, but it's gonna make such a difference for everybody, not just the employee, but for the organization in the long run, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, in your experience, what are the most effective ways to promote inclusivity and accessibility for the deaf community within a diverse workplace, in your experience?
Um, I guess having I would say communication, I guess more open space for people. What I mean by that is by allowing other employees to interact with each other and not letting one person to feel left out. I noticed
Mm-hmm.
that a lot of time when I switch different jobs. I noticed that when I first started working, I felt they escalated from a lot of people because they didn't know what to do, what to expect. Until I
Mm-hmm.
grow different organization and community. And I learned different ways how people are. Different organizations have very high expectations, high standards, and that's what you learn, right? So you want to
Mm-hmm.
make sure that you're creating this safe space for your community in terms of having a high expectation. Like, hey, if someone enroll in our community or in our space, make them feel welcome. Why are you gonna feel like them out? Like it doesn't make sense. And so you want to make sure that everybody feels like they can do it. So yeah, that's a great way of having high expectation with every employee you speak to. Like, hey,
Yeah.
you need to make people feel welcome. That's how I feel when I go to my new job now. It feels welcome way better than any other job I ever had, right? And I
Yes.
was nervous because I'm like, oh, they're gonna be disrespectful like my old job, right?
Oh.
So it was
Mm-hmm.
never that. So it may match how you want your employee to treat each other.
Mm-hmm.
That's super important a lot of time. Yeah, a boss can make the business operate, but are they really gonna make people feel like they feel safe in the space? That's different, right?
That's
So, and
true.
I always tell people, make sure you hire the right and truly good manager for your company or organization because that's super important.
Yeah, I could not agree with you more. Because a leader, a true leader, cares about their people and is accessible to their people, is listens to their I won't say their people, their team, and is part of the team also. A true leader will go in and get their hands dirty right next to their team, if that's what's called for. And but I as you were talking, so you were at your previous employer. You don't need that shall not be named.
Okay.
He that shall not be named. For any Harry Potter fans there. Uh, so you chose to leave the previous employer, rightly so, because you were not feeling valued and getting what you needed to be successful. So how did you find this organization that you are currently at, that is inclusive and values you and supports you, and not just you, but everybody, all their employees? How did you hear about them? And the reason why I'm asking this is for individuals who may be hard of hearing or have some kind of other disability or a few diagnoses. They may be stuck in their job search or feel like they're stuck in their job. And what did you look for in an organization when you were applying for other jobs?
I make sure that I look for a remote job um,
Mm-hmm.
that is hybrid. And second, I make sure that they are acceptable. I do a lot of research on organization before I even
That's
apply for a
good.
job.
Yeah.
Because of what happened to me in the past, I was like, I'm never gonna make myself go through that situation again and make myself feel like I should be left behind. No, that should not be the case. I do a lot of research on how much percentage is the disability employee. That's what I do. I
Oh,
check.
awesome.
You can
And
look.
where? Okay.
Yeah, a lot of
Good.
people don't know. Okay, a lot of people didn't know you can check. Like you can actually check it. and I will tell you.
Wow. So where, like in their annual reports?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It's online. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. And for listeners, every company should have a copy of their annual report in their company section somewhere, because it's public. It's a public document.
Exactly. It is.
Mm-hmm. So if you cannot find it, go to their sitemap or email HR for it. And so I'm so glad that you said that you researched the companies. And part of your research looking at their mission and vision and values as well, to see if how their workplace culture aligned with what you believed and all. And did you also look at their like community giving back? I'm just speaking out of curiosity now. I'm being nosy.
No, I didn't go that deep. I just
Mm-hmm.
knew what I was looking for. I wanted a remote job or a hybrid job.
Mm-hmm.
And I did my research in terms of the potentials of the disability. And the fourth thing I looked up, I don't really look at what they give back to the community, but I looked at through different job postings that they had in the past to see if they really are caring about the disability community, how many postings they have, how many times they have to repost the same posting or same listing. It's different for everybody. And so that's how I figured out that's the company I want to work for.
Nice. Awesome. Awesome. So listeners, if you have a disability or a hard of hearing, and you feel stuck in your job and you're not feeling valued, yeah, researching organizations is very, very important. You need to be knowledgeable of where you're applying to see if it might be a good fit, because it's a two-way street. You know, they're seeing if you're a good fit, you need to see if they're a good fit as well. So awesome. So can you share some examples of how technology has helped bridge the communication gap for deaf individuals in professional settings? Like, what has worked for you, and what have you heard from other people in the that you may be connected with in the deaf community that has worked for you?
So technology did actually helped a lot of the disability community, which is great. It helped us because a lot of us can work remote. I feel like it increased a lot for people who have disability, because you work from home. You know, some of us need to work from home, and some of us cannot work in the office. It helped a lot. And number two, I would say the technology is slowly getting used to being more acceptable in terms of how we can improve it better. So it kind of worked in a way, but because it's good in a way where organizations have no choice but to make their technology acceptable, and that's what I like about it.
Nice.
Third thing is easiest way to connect with other people instead of having to go outside for lunch, dinner, whatever, whatnot. And people can just hop on a Zoom call just like this, and they can just, hey, hello, how's it going? Oh my God, you're from this place. It makes it easier for a lot of, especially meetings. Meetings, I love meetings on Zoom call because I can follow up the conversation. Sometimes when it's in person, I get very, very confused with talking sometimes. So I felt like with Zoom calls, especially for meetings, it's supposed to be one person talking, and that's it. And you can follow up, and I'm like, perfect. And it's more easy to follow the conversation with people because you know who's talking. So I love remote, and I love how technology really helping us, especially the disability community, especially someone who's hard of hearing. It definitely helps us a lot in that way.
Awesome. Plus now Zoom and a few other platforms have the captions. So if the speakers like turning away, and you can't see their mouth, or if their camera's on the glitch, is being glitchy and isn't working, which happens every now and then. Technology, you gotta love it and hate it at the same time. You have the captions, which are mostly correct. Sometimes there's a little grammatical error, but for the most part, the captions are correct. So I love that Zoom and Teams have incorporated captions. I don't know if Google Meets hasn't incorporated them yet, but Zoom and Teams are the most popular ones. So when you were saying that you prefer the online meetings to the in-person meetings, I think I do too, because one, in-person meetings, people are, a lot of people aren't listening. There's a lot of noise, background noise, a lot of fidgeting, a lot of side talk. Whereas in a online meeting, you can just mute people if they're not the speaker. and as well as like even the person in an in-person meeting, if they're speaking, sometimes people, and I tend to do this sometimes as well when it's in person and I need to work on this. I look at my slide, the screen, and point to things, not realizing that, I'm pointing to make a point, to show people where I'm at, but it turns my face away from the audience, which, and for all I know, there might be an individual who is hard of hearing or deaf that needs to see my mouth to fully understand what I'm saying, to fully hear what I'm saying. And I use here in quotation marks of what I'm saying. Because as you said, even when you were in college, you and your professor did not know each other were hard of hearing. So you cannot make assumptions based on how people look. You don't know. So technically, I mean, someone who's hard of hearing, it's an invisible disability unless they're wearing a hearing aid that you can see. It's an invisible disability. So you cannot make assumptions. You have to speak if you're giving a presentation, or if you're an instructor or a teacher or something like that. You have to speak to the audience, facing the audience, and address all learning styles as you're talking and presenting, because there are people that are visual learners, there are people that are auditory learners, hands-on learners, and a mix. So, so if an employee who is hard of hearing has to go into the office, a few days a week, or maybe it's all the time, it's fully on site, and it's an older building. I'm giving you a situation here, a scenario. It's an older building, and they have the fire alarms, the old fire alarms that don't have the lights.
I see. Okay.
So what do you, how do you suggest like those teams, the team that that individual may be part of in the organization, how do you suggest they address things like that?
So that's difficult.
Let me throw this at you.
It happened to me before, actually. Where was I? I don't know where was I. There was a fire drill happening in the building. I did not even hear.
Maybe at school.
Probably the school. I think it was when I was in university. And you don't hear anything. All I'm seeing is everybody's running. I'm just following along and running. And I'm just like, what happened? So I don't know. I really didn't know that the fire.
Oh, wow. Everybody's running, okay.
I had no idea, you guys. And it's very important. Sometimes we just have to look what's happening and making sure that, but eventually someone's going to come to you and be like, hey, we have to leave the building. And especially the old building, there's nothing we can do but to make sure that we smell the smoke, to make sure like we're walking around, to make sure like, okay, just, some people don't realize that, especially if there's nothing flash. As a deaf individual, we're always looking and making sure we're safe. It's very important, but it's a lot of work. I do consistent work in more than our ears. So a lot of people don't realize that. So I don't know for that question, because if we can't hear, we can't hear. If we can't see a flash, we can't see the flash. So you have to run, just like that happened to me in school. I literally ran, everyone. Like I don't know why I was running. So I should have just asked them what happened. I just ran.
They're running for a reason. But technically, they should have been walking fast.
Yeah, exactly.
But my recommendation for organizations that have are in a historic building or an older building where those modifications may be either inaccessible to them, like they have to go through a lot of regulations if it's a historical site, or they don't have the funds yet, is to assign a buddy to that person, and also a substitute buddy to that person. And really the team leader or the supervisor should have a checklist to make sure everybody is at the meeting point outside, and but before they should be the last one to leave, really, because they have to do a quick check around, or they should assign somebody on the team to do the quick check around, because restrooms, things like that, somebody may not hear, especially in today's day and age with AirPods, where they can, even people who are not hard of hearing, who can hear, AirPods with that cancellation noise, they may not hear it if they're in this restroom, or in a if they have the closet open, doors open, and it's hiding stuff, or if they're the only one in the building, it's so really it should be a buddy system, and there should be no one person in the building. It should be a minimum of 2 in the building at times for the buddy system. So that's what I would recommend. And
yeah, I 100% agree, because I don't have a buddy at my workplace. I just have someone that said, hey, let's go 5 y'all. That's all I have. I don't have a buddy that, no, it just let me know to the 5.
That's my term for it, like somebody who will let the person know. So that's probably your buddy, I should say. But and the same for people with wheelchairs and things like that.
Exactly, right? So some of us do need a buddy to help us, especially for those on wheelchair. So everybody, again, is different. I completely agree with you, Andrea. So if you're someone that's listening, definitely recommend a buddy for somebody, so that way we can exit the building safe and sound.
Yes, exactly. All right. So speaking of buddies and people who are like helping each other out in the workplace, how can allies in the workplace actively advocate for and support their deaf colleagues beyond just providing necessary accommodations and assistance?
Volunteer, mentor. My workplace, I have a mentor who guide me, make sure I'm okay with workspace. If I have questions, I can go to them. So it's very great to have a mentor, maybe provide a certificate, for those who are interested in volunteer mentoring. There are people out there that's willing to work, but also just want to help other people. And you'd be surprised how many people are really willing to mentor other people. So that's definitely how I get through with work. I have a mentor.
Awesome.
So that's really how I get through the day. But I also tell people too, like, get a mentor, hire a mentor in your community or your organization, because it really helps a lot to make your organization better, especially if you want, especially with people business, right? So I definitely suggest that. It definitely helps a lot.
Oh, I agree. Mentorship for everybody is not just individuals with disabilities, is so important. Because even like people from marginalized communities of any type, including in marginalized communities, also includes individuals with disabilities. Having that mentor just to show them the ropes, or to be the go-to person if they have a question. And instead of like bugging, their supervisor who's inaccessible a lot, because they're in meetings, the higher you get, the more meetings you have. So, just having that person to encourage you and all, it's so important. And you actually learn from each other, because they're learning perspectives, gaining perspectives and information about things that they never heard of, because everybody's experiences and backgrounds are different. So it's a two-way street, mentorship. The mentors teaching and showing the ropes to the mentee, but the mentee is also teaching the mentor about things that they may not have heard of, especially if the mentor's a little older as well. Different generation. It's that intergenerational gap, so it kind of helps to bridge that, and which helps to create more cohesive teams and more innovative teams and productive teams. So I'm so glad that you found this organization that you're at, because feeling valued is so important, and feeling heard and getting the things that you need to be successful on the job is so important. And it's just, I wish more organizations would do that. And unfortunately, there's many organizations that don't. And that's why when, I don't know how it is in Canada, but on the applications, on a job application, we have those demographic questions. And they also include the disability questions, like, do you have a disability? And then they give a list of different types of disabilities, and you say yes, no, or prefer not to answer. And the same thing with veteran, yes, no, or prefer not to answer. And I mean, many people with disabilities don't answer because they are optional questions, right? Because they're afraid of not getting that interview, of being labeled. Because humans, we tend to stereotype. If you haven't noticed, we tend to stereotype, and and the stereotypes usually are negative.
And I'm one of them.
Yep.
I used to be one of them. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I used to be one of them. Yeah, I used to lie on my application. I didn't have a disability until they met me. And they hired me, and then I did a test. Actually, a lot of people don't know I did that. So I got hired for my job, and then I applied for another job. It was nothing bad. I just wanted to test it, and I put in the application, yes, I was disabled. And then I didn't get the interview, knowing that my resume was very well.
Wow.
And I was like, wow. So we're basically labeled. And that's why I don't blame anybody. Because a lot of people ask me, okay, should I put yes or no? And I tell everybody, tell no. Yeah. Because you're going to be labeled as a disabled person, and they'll dismiss you. It doesn't matter how good your resume is, they still dismiss you. And I'm like, what? Wow. Yeah. It's so sad, because my resume is like 3 or 4 pages. I started working at 16 years old.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And so I was like, this is not great. And I have clients myself that ask me, and I said, check up, no.
Yeah, because it's optional. They don't have to. By law, they don't have to answer those demographic questions. It's the same thing for race, the race question too. Yeah. There's a lot of people that choose not to answer, or and it shows up as undisclosed, and that's okay. That's okay. But that also is another reason why it's so important, as you had mentioned earlier, to research the organizations that you are applying to. And exactly. I loved that you looked at their annual report. I never even thought about doing that before. I love that you pull the annual report and look at the demographics of their staff, of their employees. And one thing I used to do was I used to go to their leadership page as well, and look at the how many women, how many people of color. Now, unfortunately, you can't see disability unless it's a physical disability. But so you can't see that, but you can see people of color. You can see how many females are in leadership roles. You can't tell anything by names these days either, because people marry, names change, or people can change their own names, which happens. So you can't tell anything by a name usually, but so I would look at the leadership and see how inclusive they really were. So before I applied, and so yeah, because that's, you know, hey, is there a glass ceiling for you being a female and a person of color, and maybe who knows what other identity you may identify as? Because as humans, as you know, we're complex creatures. We have many identities. You may be a female, you may be Muslim, you may be Asian, and Asian, and you may have a disability, but you're also a veteran. I mean, those are 5 right there, you know, different identities that one person can have. So it's yeah, it's just so important, listeners, to do your research. Don't just apply to apply. And I know we're kind of changing the topic here, but when it comes to workplaces, you want to make sure that you do your research to make sure that you're applying to, hopefully, it looks like an inclusive workplace. And you can even go one step further and just try to reach out to current and former employees to do informational interviews. Yeah, unfortunately, some organizations don't allow their current employees to do informational interviews, which right there tells you a lot, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So, so how did you start your? This is a separate question that I didn't send you, but as so you were saying in the beginning how you decided to become a coach and all. And you also have a podcast, by the way. So listeners, you need to check Kalina's podcast out. What's the title of your podcast, Kalina?
I don't have a podcast. A lot of people thought I did, but I'm like, no.
Oh, okay. Oh, sorry.
I wanted. Sorry. I thought, honestly, I was thinking about doing a podcast myself, to be honest. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, everyone knows it's gonna be work. But here's the thing, I don't even know if I will have, because I have so many things going on and like I'm so many hats, and I wanted to eventually have like a podcast by next year, because everybody's been on me about doing my own podcast just because I have so much stories. Mm-hmm. So I'm a very sort of butterfly. So everybody just like, you have a lot of stories to say, and so I was like, okay, guys, I will try my best. But I think I'm actually gonna do it next year. So I don't have one, but I'm coming up with some titles and some names. I don't know. Maybe it will be my book. I don't know. So I'm just I
mean, I think you should, because you just listening to you do have some great stories, and there are podcasts that don't have guests. It's just the person speaking. Like I love one called 10,000 Tacos, and it's just a guy whose parents were taqueros, so they were immigrants from Mexico and then moved to California, and they had a taco truck. And so he talks about all the different salad. I mean, it's a nice thing. All the stories of him growing up and all. 10,000 tacos. So I get my walking on with my 10,000 tacos. So you can just have a podcast that just talks about your stories and your experiences and your successes and challenges, and I think that would be a great podcast to listen to. And it doesn't have to be long. There's podcasts that are only like 10 minutes long, an episode. So and not like mine. That does this woman ever shut up? No, I don't. When it comes about DEI, no, I don't. And I never will. So you actually, as I said, told the listeners, I bought this book, but right after I bought this book, I saw that a posting from you that you had another book coming out.
Yes.
What's the title of that book?
So I have 3 books in total. So 2 books with collaboration book. Nice. So I just published it with all the deaf communities last week. It was very fast. It was very fascinating. It was beautiful, and everybody got together, write their own book, write their own part of their life. It was very interesting. It's called Wisdom of the Deaf. If I'm saying the title correctly. It was just amazing ever. Like, I love the book.
And do you know, is it already out and people can purchase it, or?
Yeah, it's on Amazon.
On
Yeah,
Amazon.
Success Wisdom by deaf person and hard of hearing person.
Nice.
Success Wisdom. Yeah.
Success Wisdom. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, so you said you had 3 books. So this one, of course, is one of them. But what's the other book?
The other one is called Young Change Matchmaker, or Young Change. Sorry, guys. Oh my goodness.
Sorry. I'm putting Kalina on the spot here, folks. I'm sorry.
It's so crazy. Oh, there it is. Young Change Maker. Okay.
Young Change Maker. Okay, cool. Nice. So
Yeah.
listeners, I will be putting...
if you look me up on Google, Kellina Powell, you see both of my books popped up.
Awesome. So listeners, you heard Kalina, but I will also be putting the links to her books on Amazon, or if you can get them at your local bookstores, if they'll have them there. If they'll order them, then great, because I always strongly suggest to support your local stores, keep them thriving instead of the large conglomerates. But if it's easier for you to order on Amazon, go for it. I will be putting the Amazon links just because our listeners are from all over the place, so I don't know their local bookstores. And but they will be on Amazon, so you can at least get the titles and the and look at the picture of the cover and stuff, so if you do choose to order at your local bookstore, that they order the correct book. So is there anything else that you'd like to talk about today, Kalina, about supporting the deaf community?
I just wanted to let people know that there's always going to be something you don't know about the deaf community. Don't be afraid to ask stupid questions. The reason why I say this is because people say, "Oh, may I ask you a stupid question?" I'm like, there's no such thing as stupid question if you don't know it.
Exactly.
So a lot of people always ask me this question. They're like, "Kalina, can all deaf people talk?" I'm not gonna get mad at you for not knowing the answer. Mm-hmm. I'll tell the answer. Mm-hmm. But you do have to do research and make sure the way you ask the question is not offensive to people.
Yes.
Right? Some people may come up disrespectful toward the other person, but the other person may take it in another way. So be mindful how you're asking questions, especially if you don't know if someone speak or do sign language. So you do have to ask yourself the question, how can I approach this person if I don't know? So the first thing I always tell people is tap them on the shoulder, have a conversation. If you know that they have not responded, automatically you would know.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to start a conversation with us. And don't be afraid. I know a lot of people are afraid. A lot of people don't know. A lot of people are like, oh my God, what I'm going to do? Oh my God. Yeah, don't overthink. Do not overthink. If you have a question, ask. Because the answer will always be no.
Yeah, that's true. If you don't ask it, then it's
the answer will always be a no. Like you just don't know. You need to ask.
Exactly. So you had mentioned sign language, and one thing I don't know is so I know there's American Sign Language, but people from, and maybe you don't know this either, I don't know, but people from other countries, non-English speaking countries.
Yeah, that's right.
Do they have a different version of sign language?
Yes, they do.
Okay.
So I only know the top 2 are American Sign Language and BSL. BSL stands for British Sign Language. So people from England or Europe speak that side of the world of Europe, all speak BSL. And then go down to Asia area, Asian country, they all have their own, I forgot their sign language initials are, I forgot what it is, but they have their own sign language.
Okay. Okay, cool. I kind of figured that was the case, but I never did my research, so so thank you for letting me know, and I think I'm going to research it because it's fascinating. It's fascinating. So let me see. So if someone taps someone on the shoulder to ask them a question,
Mhm.
and they can't hear or speak,
Mhm.
and they know that they were brought up in the English language, by a minimum, they know that they were brought up in the English language. Do you suggest that they write their question or just leave it?
Write the question or use their cell phone.
Perfect. Okay, cool.
Yeah, no one write question no more. Everybody just type something on their phone.
Oh, I make so many typos. I'd rather write my question. I'm like, oh, delete. It takes me forever to type one sentence on my phone. On the computer, I'm like fast, but the cell phone, I'm like, and yeah, I'm terrible at texting. My family always makes fun of me because I have the same typos every time. I'm like, so, and they're words, but they're just not the right word because it's a typo.
Right, exactly.
So, yeah. So awesome. Well, Kellina, thank you so much for being our guest today. Right now I'm going to go into our key takeaways, and then we'll go into our next steps. And then I'll ask you how people can get a hold of you. Okay?
Sounds good.
All right. So some key takeaways, listeners, from our wonderful conversation with Kellina today. We talked about understanding deaf culture, and we gained some insights into the unique experiences and perspectives of the deaf community, including the challenges they face in everyday interactions and the workplace. We talked about effective communication strategies and learned some practical tips for communicating with deaf individuals, tapping on the shoulder, including the use of sign language, visual aids, and technology. We talked about creating an inclusive environment and some actionable steps to make your workplace more welcoming and accessible to deaf employees, ensuring they have the same opportunities as their hearing peers. We talked about the importance of advocacy and the role it plays in supporting deaf individuals and promoting inclusivity, both in personal interactions and at the organizational level. And we talked about breaking down barriers, and we explored how to overcome common misconceptions and biases about deafness, fostering a more inclusive mindset within your team and organization and the community at large. So are there any other takeaways, Kellina, that you'd like to tell the listeners, or did I get a good summary?
Yeah,
of the
you did a
takeaway?
great job. You did a great
Okay.
job.
Awesome. Cool. Thank you. Thank you. All right. Some possible next steps for our listeners, because as you know, listeners, I love to leave you with some ways to learn and a call to action of improving yourself and the community around you. So possible next steps: implement training programs, introduce training sessions on deaf culture and sign language basics for your team. Review workplace accessibility. Conduct an accessibility audit of your workplace to identify and address any barriers for deaf employees, vendors, and customers, because you never know who's walking into your building that may be hard of hearing or deaf. Engage in active advocacy. Encourage your organization to become an advocate for deaf inclusivity, both internally and within the broader community. And foster open dialogue. As Kalina said, have those conversations. Create spaces for open conversations about inclusivity where deaf employees can share their experiences and needs. Any other possible next steps you can think of for our listeners, Kalina?
Yeah, I'd say don't be afraid to be creative with all these activities. Be creative. Use your creativity, even as your employee. How can you make this fun, more memorable? Because you do want people to remember. The only way people remember is by creativity. Yeah.
All right. Well, be creative. I will put that in. And thank you. Yeah. And not just for deaf employees, but for all employees, because as we kind of mentioned before in our conversation, there's so many different learning styles, and everybody has different backgrounds and experiences and different ways of comprehending material. You want to make sure that you're addressing everybody. So, all right. So Kellina, if our listeners want to get a hold of you, to either be a podcast speaker, or they want to contact you for your coaching services, or they want to collaborate with you on a book, how can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, definitely. Everybody can get a hold of me through Instagram, which is Jeff Queenball, or LinkedIn, Kellina Powell. And if you want to, do a project with me, I'm always open to it. A lot of people are like, can we have you on a speaker? I'm very open. You can find me on LinkedIn, Kellina Powell. Honestly, you can find me anywhere. I'm everywhere, all platforms. So if you just type in Kellina Powell and Google, I'll be everywhere. But I'm more than happy to work with so many of you guys, collaboration, speaking, you name it, I'm more than happy to be there. And lastly, I just want to point out something. I'm actually currently working on a second business, which is a virtual assistant business, which my assistant as well. And so my goal is obviously hire disability community so that they have a job. So that is my goal. And yeah, thank you.
Oh, that is so awesome, Kalina. I just got goosebumps. That is awesome. So keep me posted when that is up and running, because I don't have a virtual assistant yet. So I'd love to, get one of your virtual assistants in the future.
Of course. Everybody's gonna get an email from me about it. So once I launch it.
Cool, awesome. Well, I know you're gonna do awesome. So thank you, Kalina, for being our guest. And listeners, remember, our episodes drop every Thursday at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, or Eastern Daytime, EDT, EST, whatever it is right now. Daylight savings screws me up, but 7 p.m. Eastern Time, we'll just say, on Thursdays. So, and we are on YouTube and Spotify. So check out our next episode tomorrow at 7 p.m. And remember, stay diversifused and keep learning. We'll talk to you later. Bye. To be a guest speaker on the Get Diversifused podcast, I'm on the lookout for guests. So if you're passionate about DEI and would like to share your unique insights, experiences, or success stories, I want to hear from you. If you're a fellow podcaster who's passionate about DEI, let's swap the mic and amplify each other's voices. If you're interested in being a guest, reach out to me at Andrea@Diversifuse.com, and I'll send you the link for a guest interest form. Hope to hear from you soon. Remember, stay Diversifuse. Now go out there and make a difference. And as always, for more strategies on building inclusive workplaces and communities, check out Diversifuse. We're here to guide you on your DEI journey. Make sure to visit our website at Diversifuse.com and follow us on social media for the latest happenings, blog posts, tips, and events.